All right. So some tips that I have utilized in the past. Um, I ran a nonprofit back in Washington State, and it was focused on education policy. So I ran into a lot of different people, and there was a lot of networking experiences that I had, and there were definitely gender dynamics that I dealt with on a day-to-day basis. For me, a couple of things that really helped, especially when I did have to deal with some negative interactions and power dynamics, especially with different people who were in uh, positions of power and they were men. For me, I ended up being just very clear with what I was saying. I made eye contact with them. I set very good boundaries. I think that it's really important for you when somebody is being inappropriate to really more or less nip it in the butt. Just set your standard of how you want to be treated and know that you deserve to be treated well. So when somebody is treating you unkindly or in a way that makes you feel uncomfortable, there's nothing wrong with telling that person, I feel or I felt very uncomfortable when you did this. So talking about the action and the facts that go along with it. The other thing that I would do is when you are dealing with um, confronting someone about a behavior, leaving out the emotional aspect. It's okay to be angry about a situation or mad, but once you start name calling um, or being accusatory, it kind of loses the point, and it can rally someone up to retaliate or say things make a life harder for you. But when you stick to the facts of this behavior made me feel uncomfortable, this is what I'd appreciate in the future. Maybe if they're contacting you at an inappropriate time, you can let them know that, hey, I don't actually accept calls after this time, which I've done before. I've said, I no longer accept calls after 8 p.m. for work. So if you need to contact me, please feel free to contact me before that time, or 7 or 5 or whenever. And another thing too that's really good is to actually have an automatic response. You can actually do that on most of your smartphones, where you can do an automatic response to those specific people, and you can cater it to that person. And that's all in the contact section of your phone. I'm going to lead over to Antonella and see if she has any extra tips on that.
I have some extra tips, actually. The ones that I thought about, what I had in mind was if you were at work and you were wanting to ask your boss or senior if you wanted to get a pay rise, or even request to have a change in position, or request anything in the workplace that you would feel quite inhibited to do. So I guess the sense is, if there's a request that you would like to ask for, but are stopping yourself from doing it because you are intimidated by the other person. So a couple of tips is, first and foremost, just watch your posture. Okay, so change your posture with your shoulders back, head up, chin up, and assume the strong position. Okay, that already,
I'm assuming it.
you're assuming it, exactly. Yeah. So and you'll hear us say that pretty much the same thing in many of our videos. It's really not rocket science, but assume the posture of being strong and confident. What that does, it just sends a message to your brain that you are stronger, you're taller, you're in control. And the hormones start flowing, the serotonin, and it could be on a subconscious level, but it does make a huge difference. before you approach the person and sit down or ask for their time for a meeting, actually be very clear as to what you want and be very articulate and use very simple language. You know, you have to find the inspiration in yourself to be the change that you want to be. So you got to convince yourself that to get out of your comfort zone, to approach this person and have this conversation is because you deserve it. So convince yourself as to why you're actually doing it, because you do have a right to feel safe. You do have a right to ask for a pay rise if you can justify it, of course. You do have a right to request anything that you're entitled to at work. So you need to put your desires forward and be very mindful of, you know, your justification as to why you deserve it. Because what happens is that when, you know, you assume that position where you will actually take time to request your desires, people will start seeing you differently. They don't see you anymore as someone that is inhibited and maybe passive. So by you just presenting yourself much stronger, more assertively, you will have people reacting to you differently. And that in turn will give you more confidence. The ability to take risks, you know, you don't know how the situation will turn out, but the ability to take risks will put you in a position that you've got nothing, well, I was going to say you've got nothing to lose, but, you know, there might be some of us out there that they may find themselves that if they do voice their opinion or their request, they may lose their job. Okay, well, we can't be very specific in that regard, but if you take more risks, you're able to get out of your comfort zone and be heard. So, you know, and essentially it is up to us to do the hard work. So before you go into the meeting or before you have a chat with somebody, write down your requests very clearly and follow through with it, and don't justify it. And practice it. Yeah, exactly. Practice it with someone that you trust. Tape yourself on your phone. They say to, you know, I've heard people say practice in front of a mirror. But what I've heard, though, in that regard is it just, the energy is not quite the same. So if you can practice it in front of a person, you will straight away get a response from, you know, if you feel that you've lost your words or if you can't think straight anymore, it's very different from doing it in front of a mirror. But if you've got nobody else, yeah, do it in front of the mirror for sure.
I like doing it in front of a mirror.
You
I
like
like
doing it in front
being
of a
able
mirror?
to, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, for me, just because a lot of times then I can see my facial expressions. Like if
Yeah.
it's like, oh, am I scowling at that person
Yeah.
right now?
Yeah.
Change the facial expressions.
Yeah.
Change it up.